Reports show that Israel is maneuvering and actually taking out bigger targets all throughout the Middle East. Now, what does this mean? Is this setting up for end times? Is this Israel being Israel, trying to get to the point of owning more land? What actually is it? We're going to discuss that because it does come with repercussions. Are we siding with Qatar, which is not our friend, that actually funds our enemies? Just because Israel took a part out that dealt with their terrorists. It's a lot going on in the Middle East. We're going to discuss it. Also, we're going to talk about Trump, a big announcement he just made about a libel suit. Kind of goes along with the Smith-Mundt Act that he's been talking about. Something he's pushing for, and I think he's going to drop the hammer on some of these news organizations and cable media outlets. Just like he did with CBS, I think you're going to see more of that, and that actually is a good thing because I think it holds these journalists to a little bit more of accountability, especially with all their sponsors. Now, another thing we have to pay attention to, there was an ultimate high threat level issued to President Trump because he is going to the UK for a meeting with the king, I guess. You know, they do their normal ceremonial things. But there was a threat level raised that said we have to be on the utmost protection. Here's why it's important. There was a vigil held with Congress, only handful. They said a handful of Democrats showed up. Also, Harvard is saying that they're totally okay. More than 1/3 of their school says this, what happened to Charlie, was normal. The reason I say we have to watch the threat levels and we don't need to just act like we're going to unify, because you can't unify with someone who absolutely hates you and wants you dead. We're going to discuss that today and so much more. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here. I know we've been on this precipice of almost like falling off the cliff as a nation, because it seems like, yes, we're going great, but ultimately the sides, there's no middle ground. The sides are getting further and further apart. We're going to go over a few of those stories. I mean, listen to this. A moment of silence for Charlie was held in the U.S. Capitol. It's been reported that only 4 Democrats showed up. During the House of Representatives moment of silence, approximately 30 to 40 Democrats objected to the prayer and had a shouting match, of course, with Mike Johnson. The Democrats' hate is too much for quote-unquote unification. So when you hear people like James Langford and all these rhino Republicans saying, well, now's the time for peace and unity, that sounds like the beauty queen saying that she wants world peace. It's ridiculous. You can't have peace with someone who absolutely hates you and wants you gone from this earth. Let's keep on going. 32%, almost 1/3, literally 1% from 1/3 of Harvard polled says that they're totally okay with violence against people speaking on campus that is against what they want. These educational systems and these universities are absolutely destroying our children. You know, Harvard was set up to teach people about Christ, to teach theology, to teach doctrine, to teach the higher learning for missionaries to go across and abroad to teach people about Christ. Boy, have we gotten way off course. That's what that unity means, because what we do is we kowtow to the Democrats, or we kowtow to the evils of the world, and then all of a sudden you can't tell the difference anymore with wrong and right, or good and evil. So we're making this divide so wide now, this chasm, that I don't know if we can come back from. There's been reports that, you know, are we worried about civil unrest? Are we worried about more violence? Well, to be honest with you, if you don't hold accountable the people, the news organizations, and the people that are spreading this garbage, what's going to happen when something else takes place? There's not going to be any repercussions. We need to quit allowing for hate speech to be given. Now, here is the fine line. Pam Bondi came out yesterday and she was pretty much provocating that she was going to go and target people who were doing hate speech. That is not what Charlie would have wanted for sure, but that is not what the American way is. Here's the difference of what I'm saying. Listen to me closely. When we speak freely, we have freedom of speech, but they do come with consequences. Meaning, if you speak against your boss on social media and tell how bad of a person he is, you had the right to free speech, but it was the consequential thought that your boss said, you know, I don't want him speaking about me as my employee, you're fired. So there comes a point where we have to realize there is a very, very gray line here. We have to give people freedoms. All the while, we cannot allow this to incite violence. So I think Pam Bondi is completely wrong here. I don't believe that Pam Bondi can target people and trying to get them arrested in some way of persecution. However, I love the fact that bosses and educators are starting to get fired, and people are firing their employees because of their speech. They didn't say you could have them. They're just saying in this context, you cannot. Like they were talking about how some people from the universities were fired. Well, if you're teaching my children, the last thing I want you to do is spew violence and just innate hate towards a group of individuals. You have that freedom, but that freedom did cost your job. See, we need to realize that there is freedoms, but there's also consequences for some of the things that you may say or do. You have the freedom to do things. I don't believe that the law should tell you that you can't. I think we're getting back to Obama years and the pressures of social media taking our rights away. Nobody's saying that. We don't want that. Pam Bondi, you're completely wrong. But what we are saying is there is consequences. And yes, there is hate, and so much hate in this world and so much hate in America. What it does is show that there is no agreement when it comes to values. That is what scares me the most. It's not the fact that you have some evil people. There's depraved people all over the world. But the fact is that you couldn't even have members of Congress. 4 is all that showed up to a moment of silence that was in representation of someone who just was ultimately taken because of his views, because of the American that we live in, that we can have the freedom of speech, and he was giving people rights to speak to him in open air public. That's unbelievable. That shows we're going to be on a completely different path for what America's view is. The way that we want as conservative Christians and conservatism as a whole, freedom-minded oriented libertarians, then you have the extreme left who is wanting this mentality that they can, just pure anarchy, pure hate, and absolutely what anarchy does is push people in the hands of socialists and communists. That's actually what happens. And then you have the rhinos in the middle trying to pendulum swing back and forth, and I think that that's where you got Pam Bondi and some of those. Truthfully, Pam Bondi has been terrible at this job at DOJ. I think Trump should just fire her, period. She's horrible. She really is. Now, if Cash doesn't come back around and actually start doing something other than just showing up at events looking all crazy-eyed, he needs to figure out where he's at too. I think he's trying to play both sides. He's trying to get that MAGA base still fired up that he's doing for transparency. Like, for instance, the Utah thing, the Utah governor, the FBI, DOJ, I'm glad they were there, but truthfully, this was not even done by, they didn't really do anything. They didn't really help out, I don't think, too much. They looked at the camera, but ultimately, who found the guy? His dad. So let's make sure that we're seeing the dangers of consequences because of your speech, but we should not be making laws against free speech. We are getting to a very dangerous point, and Pam Bondi is to blame there. I think she needs to be fired. Before we start talking about Israel and some of the things that's going on along with Trump announcements, I'll work from today's sponsor, Chapter. Chapter has become one of my favorite sponsors because of the testimonials coming back. Chapter comes alongside you if you're 65 and older or about to be, and they can help walk you through Medicare, understanding your plans, understanding you're getting the best benefit. They're an advisor for you. They go across the country finding the best plans for you, and here's the benefit. It's free. Now, the one thing I love about this doesn't even help me, as in, I'm not 65, I'm not even close to it. What I've realized is all the sponsors that I do, there's a lot of people that buy certain sponsorships and they'll buy the waters or buy certain things that we deal with. But this has probably been one of the most impactful sponsors I've had because of testimonials, people saying they're saving money. The benefit of this sponsor is it's free. Call this number below, 15 or 20 minutes of your time. Let them help you walk through making sure you have the right plan. You're coming up on a season of open enrollment. Let them help you make the decisions that are good for you. If you have questions, they have answers. If you're on the right plan, they'll tell you. But if you're not, they can help walk you through making the best decisions to save you money. The average Chapter member who uses them saves $1,100 a year. That is a game changer. Hundreds of dollars a year worth of savings. So check with them today. Make sure you call the number below. And I promise you, if you're at the age where you're worried about these kind of things, they can guide you. check with Chapter. Now, I wish the announcement that Trump had was he was firing Pam Bondi. I don't think she's done a good job on any of the cases that she's been on so far, but I digress. That's not what he's talking about. There was 2 articles that came out. I thought that was really good, and then there was one that I was a little skeptical because that leads right into the Israel thing. But I want you to listen to what Trump just said. It came out that he is having a $15 billion lawsuit on the New York Times with a massive defamation and libel lawsuit. Now, the one reason I like this is this kind of reminds me of the Smith-Mundt Act and the Charlie Kirk Act they've been talking about, that the Republicans are not even want to pass. But the thing about speaking, you know, if I'm speaking, I'm just one guy on the back porch of his farm. I should have some accountability, definitely, and I should bring I should tell you exactly where the sources are, or tell you to go research, because I'm giving you my opinion, but ultimately I want you to listen. Here's the difference. From me to MSNBC or New York Times or CNN or Fox News, these people are held up to an extent to actually get benefits from the government to tell the truth. Well, if all of a sudden they don't tell the truth, they can propagandize. That means they can be biased and they can tell you the news in a biased way. Now, there's a difference in opinion part of news, like the commentaries and things like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro, or someone even like Sean Hannity, or someone on the left. But then when all of a sudden they tell you it's news and they're supposed to be quote unquote balanced and they're not, then what they're doing is actually spreading lies and spewing hate and garbage to make you believe one way or the other. Well, Trump is calling their hands at it. Kind of like the pharma situation from last week, kind of like what we talked about yesterday. You're seeing this movement where we're clearing a path of clarification. Now, what do I mean by that? People are going to tell you falsities all the time. You're going to have opinions that's going to sway you. That's what propaganda is. That's what rhetoric is. That's what commentaries do. That's why if you go to Fox News or any other one, they're going to have a right and a left, and they're going to battle it out, and they're trying to make you believe one way or the other. Absolutely, I believe news does screw us up. I do believe it causes for more division, personally. But what it does do is this. It will hold them to account where at least this is an opinion versus fact. A lot of things about these last 2 incidences with Charlotte and with Charlie, if you listen to the media, they spun that to a point that actually made it look like the Republicans are the wrong ones and the conservatives are the wrong ones and the white girl was the wrong one. That's where I think Trump is trying to say, look, we're going to start these lawsuits, and I may not be able to sue all hundreds of you news organizations, but what I am doing is I'm making fools out of some of them to make people get on the straight and narrow. That's what I think is excellent here. I want to see more of this. I really do. I think this is a good move. This is better than what DOJ and Pam is trying to do with trying to bust people for freedom of speech. That is not the way. But with Trump saying, look, if you're going to defame and you're going to have libel, we're going to call the facts out and you're going to be sued for it. That is the way. Charlie Kirk found TPUSA and Erica Kirk are bringing defamation lawsuits, it says, based on some of these stories. I hope they clear them out. You know why? Because there's no reason this should have happened. But then on top of that, for these left-wing media organizations to spew propaganda around the subject. Very, very wrong. And this is where I hope that they bust them. Now this leads me to another situation with Trump. A warning that was actually pressed against Trump. It says very high threat level. This was quoted. Very high threat level has been declared ahead of Trump's UK state visit. Trump's second state visit begins tonight at Windsor Castle, where King Charles will host a ceremonial welcome. UK authorities have raised the threat level to very high and tightened security ahead of protest plan to stop Trump coalition. The alert comes days after, of course, the situation with Charlie, with police on edge and reviewing security plans daily. Protesters will take Windsor High Street tonight, following the mass march through London tomorrow. So now you have the Million Man March that Tommy Robinson was doing with the Christians, conservatives, wanting freedom. Now you see that Trump is coming over and they're now having an opposition against him and against the Tommy Robinson situation on the behest, on the edge and the precipices, and on the edge of the fact of another tragedy that just happened with a political operative such as Charlie. So here's the thing. If we don't have enough pressure against this with Charlie, how much more dangerous is this for Trump? Remember, Trump, I mean, there's been attempts on his life already. And now he's going to a foreign country that is supposedly our ally. However, there's a lot of people that don't like him there too. So this is a big deal. And when not only the U.S. government has got people there, but the UK government is saying, we got to make sure he's kept safe because we don't need this happening on our watch. Now, here's the sad thing. If you go on TikTok, Twitter, especially all these left-wing ideologies, you see this hate that everybody's calling for him to be the next one, him and Elon to be the next one. That is so bad that we're at this part of our nation. This shows that we can never get to a point of unity without revival, without reawakening to a Christian moral outlook. And if people are not willing to do that, I mean, there's churches. Do you realize there's churches? I say churches very loosely here, and quote pastors. There's been several churches that were African American churches and black churches and liberal churches that are actually saying, again, it's not the liberals' fault, or it's not the guy's fault. It's probably the conservatives' fault. It's Charlie's fault. It's the Republicans' fault. You have churches saying that, quote unquote churches now. So the division is getting deeper, more divisive, and I don't think the media is helping, like we were just talking. But when we have our dignitaries going to visit other countries, personally, this is just me. If I was Trump and we were really set on making new precedents, leaders would only come here. Now, what I mean, I know you're going to have to go some places across the world. But anytime there's a threat level raised, I think Trump should say, look, if we're going to meet, you're going to do it on my soil. You're going to do it here where we can control the environment. I think when we send our leaders abroad, this could be a very bad thing. Did you know that we have several leaders right now in Israel? We have several leaders in the UK. And then there's, of course, several back here. But at any point in time, what if all of a sudden something crazy sparks off in the world? We have leaders all abroad. We have tragedies taking place. How safe is our leaders? How safe are we when our leaders are abroad? This is where we have to really pay attention to this. I think this is where I get a little bit more isolationist. I'm not quite to a point where I believe we should have complete free trade all across the world like most libertarians. And I don't believe that we should be completely isolationist to where we can't control like the Venezuela situation or things around our hemisphere for sure. And make sure we're setting policies to where China and Russia don't take over. Absolutely. But I almost come to a point where if they're telling us that our leader is in extreme threat, and we're expecting this liberal, government, along with the king who has no power. And actually, if you look at it, Qatar and some of the Middle Eastern countries actually own more land and have more people in England now than even the UK kingdom, even more than the king has. This is just not smart to me. I'd have said, look, sorry, with everything going on, why don't you come visit us? And then they choose not to, then so be it. Be done with it. I mean, this is all just so stupid to me. Because again, why do we meet with the king anyway? Really, what kind of power does the king have anymore in Europe? Really, in UK, it's not much. So is it worth risking our leader when they say out loud that we have to raise the height limit of terror because we're worried that something could happen? That's a red alert, and that kind of leads me to the next point. The divisiveness, the tragedies, the threat levels, the fact of just depravity. Now, Israel. Israel has warned its people. There was a new map that they sent out to the Yemeni people. They also dropped pamphlets in Gaza before they went into Gaza City. They're doing all the things to say, please get out of harm's way because we're coming in and we're going to take out the terrorists. Now, in the media, they're telling you that Israel's doing all the wrong things. Now, let's go biblical here. In history, the biggest kingdom Israel had was under King David. I think King David and King Solomon. But still, it was not actually covering and encapsulating the whole promised land that God said that Israel could have. Their lines would have actually been bigger. Now, does that mean that Israel is trying to build that kingdom now? I don't know. I don't think so, but it could be happening. Remember the red heifer situation. Remember they've been talking about the third temple. So they're looking to keep on getting rid of terrorists. They're looking to make sure they're taking over their land. They're looking to protect themselves, no matter if you like them or not. We would do the same thing with Mexico or Canada. Sorry, just that is war. Doesn't make it right, but it's true. If China goes into Taiwan, it's going to be bad. If Russia keeps going into Ukraine, it's going to be bad. We just want to bring attention on it because no one wants to look at the fact that this is a religious war. And the sad thing is we want to make it political, or we want to make it about Netanyahu. And even the conservatives like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are actually standing with the liberals on this. Truth be told though, Trump just made a deal with Qatar to try to help them keep safety in Doha because of Israel's attack. What I don't want to see is us go against Israel. However, what I would like for us to see is us to sit down with these people and say, look, either root out your terrorists or Israel is coming in. So when they're going to Yemen and they're going into Gaza City, they're going into Qatar. Do you realize they've not hurt any of the leadership there? They're not going against the governments. What they're doing is they're pinpoint striking people that have committed terror. You do realize the Qatari government has committed terror against us. They're the ones funding. Iran and them fund the terror against us. But we want to act like it's all okay and that, Israel is wrong. Israel did not bomb the Qatari government. They bombed the Qatari government's holding of Hamas. Same way with Yemen. They're not saying they're going for Yemen. They're going for the targets that are used to hurt Israel. But what it's doing, it's splintering, of course, the right and left, definitely. But also what it's doing, it's splintering the right to a point where you're starting to see almost a movement away from Israel. That scares me. Because I do believe, when we talk biblically, that Israel will almost be on their own as they go into end times. And I hate to see that we're starting to see leaders try to... Here's the scary thing. We have leaders over there right now. What I feel like we do is you ever saw that guy that wants to play kickball so bad and he's the last one picked every time, but he's going to show you this time. So he overdoes it and actually still blows the game. You get what I'm saying? They're the ones that's trying too hard. Well, to me, I feel like sometimes our Congress and Netanyahu are trying to do the same thing. Instead of trying to beg that we're part of the same people, just show it. Actually be the friend. What do I mean by this? Our leaders over there right now, and some of the Republican leaders, and instead of not just being friends with them, they want to go and they want to almost be a submissive way to them. I don't believe that actually helps our movement with American-Israel relations. I think if you really want to gain trust from the American people or from the Israeli people, I think we just need to learn to work together, show that our intelligence are working together, and actually show that we're trying to say, look, we want peace, but until you get rid of these terrorists, until you get rid of these people that are causing us harm, we're going to annihilate them. And I think we need to start making sure that we're all on the same page. What I believe that we're doing is America and Israel are not lining up on some of these issues about where they're going to get these terrorists, and I believe there needs to be some bigger discussions here. We may need to leave Russia and Ukraine alone. We may need to leave China and Taiwan alone and start focusing back on relations that we have with our allies. Because it does not look like we're actually on the same page. Well, guess what? We're not on the same page. What happens? We start having problems. Think about your marriage. If your marriage is not on the same page and your wife and your husband are not communicating well, then you're going to have to seek counsel, or you're going to have to fix it, or you're going to have a come to Jesus time, because ultimately you're not together on some issues. Well, I think America and Israel are in that same spot, and I think what's happening is you're splintering the allies there, you're splintering the right-wing party, you're splintering the conservatives, which ultimately will cause for bad times. Now, give me your thoughts. There's a lot. You have Trump threat levels, you have Israel, pretty much raining terror on certain parts of the Middle East, but to be honest with you, they're trying to do it in a way that only takes out the terrorist. Are they wrong? Are they right? Let me know your thoughts. And again, we're more divisive than we've ever been. I don't think that we're going to find common ground without revival. I love to hear J.D. Vance, Donald Trump talking about Jesus more and talking about God. That's great. I hope they live it out, and I hope we start seeing more of that in front of our very eyes. Something else I want you to pay attention to. Lately, you've noticed Trump's sitting a lot. He's getting some age on him. And I don't think some of these events and these things are actually good anymore. Sometimes I don't think putting him out on these stages and letting him speak for 2 hours is good anymore. He can do what he wants. He's the president of the United States. But I just want us to be very careful and conscientious. If we want him to lead, I think it's actually good to have him leading from Washington, doing the job, holding people accountable, and not going to all these countries to do these visits. I think it's just kind of stupid. Give me your thoughts. A lot today. God bless.